Okay, so here we are, we're at Goathland on the North Yorkshire moors, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a little sketch of the station, looking into the sort of station from the bridge. So you've got the railway lines all converging into the centre, you'll have the buildings converging, and what we're going to do is a little bit of an exercise on perspective and how to work out a composition. Now, Goathland is on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, which is a historic, wonderful railway that covers the Yorkshire Moors and runs all the way to the coast. It runs from Pickering in North Yorkshire right through to Whitby. It's become more famous recently for the depictions in the Harry Potter film, as well as many TV series going about, such as Heartbeat Country. There is a lovely nostalgic feel to the buildings. They have a real sort of majesty about them, and the whole concept is wonderful in the sense it's got that historic look, as well as having that colour and range of wonderful sort of colours that we get with the countryside in North Yorkshire. Drawing is going to be a vital part of watercolour, and this is a great opportunity to do some serious sketching and really develop something really special. Now, after reconnoitring the whole station and walking around the whole area, we've settled on this view which looks from the station, looks back to the station from the bridge, and it's an elevated view, so you get that sort of looking down on the railway tracks that disappear into the distance and have that little twist in them that sort of goes into the distant trees. And we're going to wait for the arriving train. So what we're going to do, actually, we're going to do it in two stages. So I'm going to do a majority of the sketch is going to be done without obviously the trains in place, and then we're going to take a photograph of the train, which you'll see here on the video of when the train is actually parked up, and we're going to try and capture that. But what we're going to do, we're going to do majority on site, and then we're going to go back into the studio and match up the more detailed sketch of the train back in the studio. When you have sort of such a lovely view as this, and obviously it appears quite complicated, the key is, how do we start? Well, my first effort with this is to sort of establish the vanishing point. So I'm going to work in the distance and work out where the things that really capture me are going to be the train tracks. The shape of the train tracks are going to be absolutely vital to make all the other elements sit on those train tracks and have them on the right level, on the right plane. So establishing the flow of the train tracks is going to be crucial. First of all, I'm going to get the proportions of where actually the train tracks disappear in my painting. So as you can see from this, I'm going to be sort of 2/3 towards the top of the painting, if not a bit further, where the train tracks disappear, and try and get that sweep of the train tracks as they come into the foreground. And that's going to be vital to establish the feeling of distance and having the right flow into the foreground. Now, with this view, our next step is to start establish the buildings and make sure we get them in the right scale and relationship to the train tracks. So I'm starting on the left with the buildings on the left, and you've got obviously the station building, the predominant one, and then you've got the signal box in front of it. And between them and the other side, you've got the bridge. And I want to establish the height and the size of those. And that's going to be crucial because they are the sort of in the focal. Your eye is going to be drawn to those, and it's important to get those absolutely as clear as I possibly can. And then from that, I'll then develop a collection of shapes working away from there, such as the little coal trucks in the foreground, and then work through and away towards my foreground. The overall effect I'm trying to capture here is that feeling of perspective, particularly when it comes to the railway lines and how they are much narrower further away, and then as they gradually come towards you, they get wider, and that is absolutely crucial to kind of get that feel. Now the sun is out, you can get a really sense of light and shade, which really helps to give that sort of feeling of depth to your sketch. Now I'm moving towards the opposite side of the railway, and I'm trying to collect these range of shapes. You've got oval shapes, you've got round shapes, you've got sort of square shapes, and I'm going to put those in. I'm trying to ensure that I've got them all in proportion to the shapes on the other side of the railway plank, so everything has balance to it. And then I'm going to work in some more work on the lines to ensure that I'm maintaining that feeling of the lines getting wider as they come nearer. Now I'm sort of going to work away from the centre and trying to get the overall feeling for the trees to ensure that I get the right amount of sky, I get those sort of distant trees in place and all set the scene while we await the train to arrive. As the train arrives, you can hear that steam, that magic and noise that comes with the steam engines. Now as the train parks up, we're going to be very quick and just trying to capture the essence of the train and get the feeling for the lines, the parallel lines that are at the top of the train and at the bottom of the train, and getting that feeling of shape and size of the train. Just quickly sketch that in as fast as I quickly can. Obviously we'll pick this up again later when we've got the photograph and we're back in the studio, but I just want to get an essence for the size and shape of the train and ensure that you get the feeling of the size disappears, and as it disappears it gets narrower towards that focal point. The key here is it's a thing called perspective, because obviously all the carriages are going to be the same length in real life, but when you're looking at them from this distance here, which makes the whole thing look foreshortened, the carriages all appear much smaller and narrower. You certainly get the noise. Now we've got that photograph of the train, which will become the reference picture for the whole video, we can sketch it in and we can get much more of the detail. And obviously we'll pick that up in the studio later. Now it's a case of working up the darks, ensuring they get those sort of really strong darks that will be vital. And I can see them scattered about. First of all, I'm working around where the parked up coaches are on the siding there, and I'm trying to get that shape as well of those, and then we'll work in the other darks from the windows and under the trains and under the carriages. Now I've got to sort of work in some of the foreground buildings, and this one that comes to mind is the water tank on the right hand side with the water houser by the side of it. I just want to make sure I get the right size and scale of those in proportion to the train, and also in proportion to the original railway lines that I put in. Now it's a case of working in the darks and ensuring that I get the right tonal value really in place. So I'm going to, these uncover the windows, and then I'm also going to try and put a bit of shape into the trees just to get a feel for the different layers of woodland that sort of goes into the distance. After adding shading to the darks and getting that sense of depth, I'm now going to work my way into the foreground, particularly the foreground on the left hand side, to try and get that feeling of variation in the vegetation. So you've got some sort of bushes and then you've got some individual plants that I want to put in to give that feeling of sort of interest in the foreground that will lead my eye into the train station. Okay, so we're coming to the sort of final steps of what we can get on location, and we're just putting in the trees and the final touches. What we'll do next is we'll obviously take it back to the studio and then be able to look at the train in more detail and get that all correct. Okay, so there we have it. We've got the finished sketch with the sort of perspective lines in place. We've got the little tones in place that sort of highlights the lights and the darks. I hope you've enjoyed that. I think we captured the essence of it. Obviously when I go back in, I'll do a bit more in the studio, but from a very sunny Goathland, enjoy a bit painting.